Welcome to this video about identifying and analyzing bias in media. In this video, we'll answer two questions. First, how can you identify different types of bias in context? And second, how can you evaluate how well different points of view are represented? First of all, how can you identify different types of bias in context? There are many types of media bias. Three main types of bias in informational media are bias by omission, bias by placement, and bias by spin. Bias by omission involves leaving out important facts and points of view. For example, imagine that there is an election campaign happening in your community. If media sources report little or nothing on a candidate in the election, that is bias by omission. Bias by placement involves placing some pieces of information more favorably than others. For example, if a news website places a story about one candidate at the top of their homepage and stories about other candidates at the bottom, that is bias by placement. You can also identify bias by placement within a media source by noticing where something is first mentioned. For example, an unbiased source should mention all of the candidates at the same point in the story. If it does not, it is bias by placement. Bias by spin involves the positive or negative connotations of the words in media sources. That is, when media sources influence their audience by choosing words that express positive or negative feelings about a topic, that is bias by spin. For example, one media source might call an election candidate a reformer, while another might call the same candidate an extremist. Reformer has a positive connotation of someone who wants to fix problems. Extremist has the negative connotation of someone with dangerous beliefs. Both words show bias by spin. In addition, emotional words often indicate bias by spin, especially when they are applied to one point of view. For example, superlative adjectives such as the best and the worst, and verbs such as love, hate, destroy, save, and kill. That leads to our next question. How can you evaluate how well different points of view are represented? When you examine a media source, begin by asking, whose points of view do you need to know? And then, are those points of view presented in a balanced way? In other words, do the authors tell the whole story? In the election example, whose points of view do you need to know? If you are deciding who to vote for, important points of view might include other voters, local leaders, policy experts, and the candidates themselves. Next, are those points of view presented in a balanced way? These points of view are not presented in a balanced way if there is bias. You can detect bias by omission and placement when media sources do not report on all of the candidates equally. In addition, you can detect bias by spin when media commentary and analysis appears one-sided and does not use neutral or objective language. To sum up, in this video we have discussed how to identify and analyze bias in media sources. Thank you for watching.